Skirmish Season 12 begins this weekend, running August 16th through the end of the month. And if you're going to one of the more than 237 Blitz format events around the world, you're going to need to know what today's decks do and how they work. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for tuning in today here on your Flesh and Blood Wednesday as part of our week-long march towards the kickoff of Skirmish Season 12, and more specifically for us here, the Blitz portion of Skirmish Season 12. It's always great to have Blitz come back from a competitive standpoint. We can look at LL, see how everything shapes up across the competitive meta. But another really fun thing about Skirmish Season specifically is because it's played in the LGS, you get a very wide variety of things happening around the world that you might not necessarily see if it was like 100 and some odd person tournament, 80 person tournament, whatever it may be, at like a Battle Hardened or something like that. So Skirmish Season is always chaotic and fun, and I absolutely love tracking it, and that's why we're spending so much time talking about it as we do every time. Okay, now the 6 heroes I want to talk about today are ones that I do believe by and large will do very well this season, and for certain, they're ones that if you show up to your shop, you're going to need to know what these do and how they work and what they're trying to do. Regardless of who you're playing, they're going to be there, right? Some of these heroes, probably all of these heroes, will be in the room on the day you show up. Now, the caveat of kind of the chaos of Skirmish Season is it's important to remember that the best hero for any given skirmish always depends heavily on the local meta, right? You may have some super good data doll player or something like that punching through or whatever it may be, right? But these 6 that you see right here, these heroes offer very unique play styles that provide an edge against a lot of the more popular picks and could lead to some surprising results, probably at the top of the wheel that we'll see each week from Legendary Studios as they track the results. Okay, so you have already seen the heroes at this point: Florian, Kayo, Blaze, QuickkyP, Aurora, and Arachne Solitary Confinement. So the way we're going to approach this today is I'm going to run down each hero, talk about what they are trying to do basically across the board, and then we're going to do deck text for each of them, or I should say at least look at the deck for each of them so we can have a general idea of what you might be facing as you run into your skirmish. So we start our discussion with fan favorite Florian. Now, Florian is very threatening in Blitz because not only does he have the tools that have been removed from him in Classic Constructed, such as Germinate, but he also has very different builds that he can, when you sit down against him, you're not really necessarily sure which build. Is he going to be kind of a mid-rangey type thing? Is he going to go the full rune chance thing? How do you play it? What's it going to do? Are they going to try and channel over with the Arcane Scepter and get a whole bunch? You really don't know. So that adds a little bit of unknown into this. Now, I do want a caveat of, I don't know what the necessarily best build is, but what I am convinced of is that I don't believe you should play Scepter. Even if you are going to go with like a Rune Chant stack Florian trying to come over the top and OTK with like a Ninth Blade or something like that, I still very much believe that in this format, you want your Reaping Blade, or I should say you want a weapon, and Reaping Blade is the correct choice on which to do that, obviously being careful with your own health gain. Now, the reason I say that is primarily because Grasp of the Arc Knight, being able to do with Florian 2 rune chants into a swing for a non-consumable card is absolutely disgusting. And with all the D-reacts and stuff that Florian has available to him, he will make it, he will survive the game, and you will get to the point where you can, where you've decomposed and you're making a bunch of stuff. In terms of that, I mean tokens. On top of that, of course, he has Felling of the Crown, which is absolutely disgusting in Blitz because it takes 1 card from their hand and it's an 8 and in 20 health, right? So let's go ahead and look at what I have, which is a Flex Florian build here, and this link is available to you below. Now, functionally, what we're doing here should be no surprise in terms of the armor suite. Lots of good armor, Well Grounded is in there as well. And if we look, I have my deck at 37 cards, and that's because it gives us some inventory slot depending on what we want to do. And that's the point here of this being Flex. Now, this is not a full Rune Chant stack Florian. We're not trying to, there's no make 3 Rune Chants and stuff like that, outside, of course, of just, good stuff like Arcane, Seeds, and Life. Okay, now we have Germinate in here as well, because why would you not? Generally, I believe you're going to want to save Germinate for in-game, right? Use it as a blue to pitch, and then, I mean, that was kind of the argument of why they took it on CC, is you could put it at the bottom for an in-game thing with basically no penalty. So you should probably do that here. And we also have good stuff like Bramble Spark, Cadaverous Tilling, or playing CNC here, because why would you not? Plow Under, I am playing Plow Under. I keep going back and forth on whether or not this actually belongs in him or not. Keep in mind that Felling and Plow Under are not poppers, and you do see quite a bit of Prism in this format because both Prisms are legal. So that is a potential pitfall for you. However, we do have Fruits of the Forest Red, we have Command and Conquer, we have Cav Tilling, which is a natural 6. So we've got the 3 poppers there. Plus we have 1 Evergreen for matches we think are going to go longer, right? Because Evergreen can recycle. So in general, what he's going to be doing is just trying to outvalue you. Just straight up, he's going to be putting Rune Chance and coming from multiple ways, doing the decompose thing. And once he turns on, it's very, very difficult. Now, one thing to be aware of what Florian can do on kind of the Rune Chant stack thing, like if he's going into, you know, let's say he gets 12, 14 Rune Chants out or something like that, which is not unheard of. It's actually pretty doable on the stack type thing. But you are maybe a Guardian, you've got a whole bunch of blues, you've got a bunch of life left. Maybe he's not going to be able to punch you through because you've got that 1 AB. Well, Looming Doom is a very interesting way to just keep chip, 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 chip over the top. So do be aware that a lot of folks will play Looming Doom for that very reason. Okay, and of course, right, 9th of the Blood Oath, Seeds of Tomorrow, all sorts of cool stuff that he can play and really change his toolkit quite a bit. And part of the reason he gets so much space on the toolkit is because he has Dyadic Carapace, which has AB2, so he only has to run 2 arcane equipment, which gives him a lot more sideboard space compared to a lot of the other heroes. So I do functionally believe Florian to be probably, I always keep going back and forth on whether Kayo is the best or whether Florian's the best. I have a very I have my suspicions on what I think will do well this season, but hey, it's Skirmish and we will see. So next up is Armed Kayo, absolutely a big powerhouse in the Blitz format right now. He can just throw damage, and when he discards, he makes more damage for the next turn, and he just keeps coming at you. He has Blood Rush Bellow available, and with his thing where he only has 5, he can get in a situation where it's very, very, very difficult, not impossible, but very, very, very difficult for him to miss. And again, this is just kind of good stuff, come at your face, Kayo. And I also believe that a lot of the work with Kayo, obviously you have to be smart and navigate him and pilot him well in the moment, but I think a lot of the work with Kayo actually comes on the deck includes and knowing exactly how to play your deck based on those includes. So you're going to see a lot of good deck builders and pilots doing this the same. Okay. So also, let's just point out some of this. I mean, look at this fridge, right? Scowling Fleshblag is easily, I don't know if it's easily, but it's very, very good at Blitz. I think it's like the best piece of equipment in Blitz because it can just shut down, like on Arc Lightning turn, it just takes your card away. Dorinthea is trying to do some pop-off turn, takes your card away that you wanted to do your thing, right? Because this happens on defends and before reactions, right? This stops long chain turns or reaction turns or whatever it may be absolutely in its tracks. Okay, also just Apex Bonebreaker, defend with another card, make a might, not too bad. We are on beaten trackers here because when you're doing your pop-off thing for Savage Sash, which is arguably a busted card, right? Damn good. Absolutely good. I do keep in mind, not keep in mind, but FYI, I do have Scabskin Leathers in the inventory for some grindier matchups if you think you're going to need it. But by and large, I think you want to do your pop-off. It's worth the armor trade for beaten trackers. And then what we see in here is just a lot of good stuff. So we have Bare Fangs, right? That's just a functionally good card. You want to do something into that. Wild Ride, another no block with you, right? Bare Fangs, no block. Wild Ride, no block. We're aware of that. And then we also have, that's right, Pulping with no block. This one, be very careful with this depending on who you play into because while Pulping is defended by less than 2 non-equipment, it has Go Again, which means that it's the opposite. If it's being defended by 2, it has Go Again. Now, in general, you're going to be able to dominate this, but if you're playing against someone like Florian or maybe even Quicksilver Prodigy, who has a fair number of reacts Or they can put those reacts into Arsenal, right? So they can react and then defend and then do a react from Arsenal and shut your pulping down. So be very careful on leading. Usually, like a lot of times we're like, oh, I'll just lead with pulping because it's a go again. Be careful on that, right? If they've got a card in Arsenal, they can absolutely shut down your pulping, or the threat is there, I should say. Okay, class of agility, E-Strike is a 5. E-Strike's a 5, and it's a dang good card. And then I am playing 13 blues on here specifically. I do think that's the right number. Keep in mind, I've got Reckless Swing down here for a sub-in, depending on, for like Quicksilver Prodigy, I'll play that. I don't think you want to play that on someone like a Florian. I think you just kind of want to go face on him. And then I have 1 copy of Cast Bones, another thing you can do for kind of like a more slowy play type thing. So just a lot of really, really good stuff in here. Oh, Rally Coast Guard, by the way, brand new card with a 5. This one's pretty darn good. And I have Run Roughshod. Oh, man. Also, don't forget that you can Mandible Claw, lead with Mandible Claw, and then discard your Agile Wind-Up or your Mighty Wind-Up to do the thing, make the token, and also get go again on that. And also trigger KO. Pretty darn good as a setup for like turn 1, or maybe like a non-ideal turn where you don't have what you want. You want to Arsenal Big Swing or something like that, or Arsenal Blood Rush Bellow, whatever it may be. So anyway, really good stuff with KO, and he is extremely, extremely scary. He can throw a bunch of damage, and he has a huge fridge. What else do you want? Very good deck. Some of you may be surprised to see Blaze on this list, considering that Stormstriders has been removed from the format. And while there is no questioning that it absolutely 100% did hurt her because it changes the whole kill range math, Blaze is still very good into the format. And there's one major reason that she is, and it's Scour, right? Florian, as we talked about earlier, is very prevalent in the format. A lot of people like to do that rune chant stack thing. And heck, even if you're playing like the mid-range, it's not uncommon for him to find himself just randomly with the way that he creates things in Germinate or whatever, with like 5, 6, maybe even more rune chants just sitting on the table waiting for a Swarming Gloomveil or whatever to come in, or just swinging, whatever, you get it. Scour, right? So Blaze is actually very, very, very good into Florian, because Florian has a ton of D-reacts. What's he going to use them for? Right? Maybe the Nourishing Emptiness or something that we're packing. But other than that, Blaze does really good into a fair amount of the field. She has certainly lost ground, but if you look at the matchups within these top 6, she does okay. She really struggles into folks like Kayo and stuff like that, just because she has to defend and she can't really do her thing. But hey, everyone's got good matchups and bad matchups, and into a lot of the folks in the field, Blaze does really, really, really good. So let's go ahead and head over to my Blaze deck here. This is pretty much a standard Blaze deck. If you were to go look at what people are playing on Talishar, what's on Fabrary, there's not too much in here that's all that different. There is one decision that I've made in this deck, and that is to leave Eye of Ophidia in the maybes. That is because I build my decks for what I have, and I feel comfortable to bring. I don't have an eye. I'm not going to buy an eye, so I do not have it in there. Obviously, the eye pitching and giving you 2 Blaze counters is very strong. Okay, now I do want to talk about Old Knocker. Okay, so Old Knocker is, it used to run Spellfire Cloak, and there's advantage in that because that has AB. But Old Knocker is really cool because it has the Blade Break. Okay. And you're like, well, but that doesn't get me my resource. But it does, because you can throw this forward and it blade breaks when the combat chain closes, destroy it. But if you're playing this while the chain is still active, it's still there, and you can still instant tap Blaze to gain the resource. You don't need to tap Blaze for anything else. So you can get one out of it and the resource, and that's why I believe it is functionally better than the Cloak. Now, in terms of replacing Stormstriders, we've just gone Seeker's Leggings, okay? Prevent 1 damage and get yourself a counter at the cost of 1 resource. Okay. Now, the rest, Talismanic Lens and Metacarpus Nodes, and of course, Waning Moon. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now, one card I did put in here is Burn Bear. It just seems good. It's a popper for you, which doesn't stink, which means that we have access to 3 poppers, because I am doing the Dorinthea Quicksilver Prodigy trick, and I am doing Nourishing Emptiness. This also gets you a Blaze 5-card hand, which could be pretty nasty. Now remember, Blaze is all about the ops. I do only have 1 Kindle. I think that's the right answer with her. Obviously, I know that it's really good and it gets you the card access, but a lot of times you have to commit her card to do it, and I don't think you want to be counting on this to pay for it. You know, maybe get your Arsenal or something like that. I get it. But it's really only amping one, and I think that with having two of them, I think you can clog it up. So point is, I don't think you ever want to see two Kindles in your hand at the same time, and that's why I have it as a one of. Okay, now if you look at the rest of this, it's kind of just like good stuff Arcane Rising by and large, right? We have Absorb and Aether, which gives you an amp. Okay, we have Cindering Foresight, which is everything you want Blaze to do, right? That's her bread and butter plus an amp. Okay, and then we just have a bunch of blues that we can chuck to amp. And then, of course, Sonic Boom, which is the kill shot there. Now, going into the inventory, we have 2 copies of Scour. I have 2 copies of Swell Tidings. And then the Alluvion Constellas, because that's right, free staff against like an Aurora or something like that does not suck. Okay, so I get it, right? Blaze took a hit with her boots being gone. I do get it, but I strongly believe that she still plays very, very well in the meta. And again, with the preface of today's cast, you need to know how she works if you're going to walk into Skirmish, because I think she's going to be there, and you don't want to just get burninated down by the wizard. So Aurora here was our biggest winner of Skirmish Season 11. She's incredibly fun, she's incredibly straightforward, she's incredibly consistent, and she can put up a ton of damage in mixed form, and it becomes very hard. Now, in the time since, CLV, Channel Lightning Valley, has been taken away from her. Okay, so that is not irrelevant. I do not believe she is as good as she was before, but she is still very, very, very good within this meta because of the reasons that I just said, puts out a ton of damage. Now, what was interesting about Skirmish Season 11, I've said this many, many times before, I'm positive that Verdance was actually the best hero during Skirmish Season 11, but Aurora saw the biggest representation because Aurora was very popular in CC, and a lot of folks were taking their decks apart, or pulling their decks down, whatever you want to say, to show up for Skirmish and just play a hero that they were aware with, right? I very much believe that is why Aurora had the representation that she did and did what she did in Skirmish Season 11. I also believe that you're going to very much see a lot of those folks do the same thing because their hero's gone in CC, so now this is their only outlet to play Aurora. Aurora is going to be at your Skirmish, probably multiple people playing her. Okay, now, I am not going to do the full deck tech on this because I went, so the next 3, so Aurora, Quicksilver Prodigy, and Arachne ASC, which we'll talk about next. I actually covered those decks that I have in this video right here, so you can go and get a full, if you are interested in these decks, you can go and you can get a full rundown of all 3 of those. Timestamps are included, so you can go right to the one that you want, but I don't want to rehash the entire thing here, okay? Instead, the objective of this is that you understand what she's trying to do, and the answer is go wide, smack you, and deliver on hits and pings and make sure that you don't have a good decision. Right now, big drivers of this, of course, is something like Burn Up Shock. Okay, Burn Up Shock being able to deliver that one Arcane, get the on hit, because a lot of time you're like, okay, with Burn Up Shock on the other mode, if I take any hit, right, not any damage, but if I take any hit, I'm going to get dealt 4 Arcane damage. So what's going to happen is most of the time they're not going to pitch to this one Arcane. They're going to have been dealt damage, and then they're going to be trying to block out to make sure that they're not taking the hit. So to that point, we do have a really, really good card, and it was my spoiler card, actually for Rosetta, which was Second Strike. Okay, Second Strike is one that pairs extremely well with those little pings and trying to get that through because it becomes a 4 go again, very, very, very strong. Okay. Also, don't forget about sneaky little lightning presses on either your Burn Up Shock turn or your Static Shock turn, or, you know, as it may be, on your Snatch or whatever it may be, right? Very, very, very good card there. Now, obviously, Arc Lightning is her bread and butter, and that's just going to be her go wide pop-off turn. You can see from my armor suite, I prefer to play more of like a tankier Aurora so I can take a Spinal Crush or something like that. There is another version out there that will run like Crown and Gold and as many Snappies and stuff. There's many go-agains they can get to try and maximize that Arc Lightning turn. And if it comes turn 0, or turn 1, it can be very, very, very hard to deal with that, right? And that's why Aurora has done pretty well. But taking a Spinal or something like that, I think there's going to be more Guardians in the room. I think you want to go tankier, but I can acquiesce. You do what you want to do, but know how she works, okay? Last note I'll have on playing against Aurora. Again, I'll bring up Burn Up Shock. Remember that 1 arcane damage. And then also Sigil of Suffering, that 1 arcane damage. You have to be very careful going down even to like 2 against Aurora for kind of like the Reckless Swing type concept. Not just on Sigil of Suffering. A lot of time that one's easy to see because, you know, you're going to be attacking. You'll try and leave 1 floating so that your 4 comes over what their 3 would be if you pay it off. But if you go down to no cards in hand or something like that and you're only at 1, they're going to draw it. Or they're going to be trying to draw it and sling it in when you don't, at instant speed, right? They'll sling in that 1 and drop you at that 1. Okay, so be very careful about that going in. Also, a lot of 4 breakpoints makes it very hard, very hard. So make sure you protect your health with Aurora, defend well, and, well, I guess after that, you just pray, because she's very good. Now, the discussion about Aurora's popularity last season, I think, also applies to Arachne Solitary Confinement, because Slippy right now is extremely popular, extremely potent in Classic Constructed. A lot of people are on them, and I think you're going to see a lot of people do a very similar thing on Arachne Solitary Confinement. I would not be surprised if he's a very popular hero. Plus, with all of the new tools out of the Hunted, ASC here is pretty dirty, right? The whole Kiss of Death, right? A Toxicity Kiss of Death for, what is that? Basically a third of your health coming off on a single flick that's not necessarily preventable unless you've got the right cards, right? You're taking on the chins or whatever it may be. Make sure to be keeping those around. Can be extremely potent. Now, the one risk, before I show the deck actually, I think the one risk that players will run into on ASC if they're just dumbing their deck down is I do believe that to maximize ASC and Blitz, you have to play it slightly differently, right? Whereas a lot of times you would be looking at, you know, not necessarily damage, but looking more at the disruption and trying to threaten with stuff like Mark of the Black Widow or something like that with your marks. Something like Double Trouble is actually extremely potent in Blitz just because of the life total, right? This being able to come in with, you know, maybe a react over top, all of a sudden this goes to 8 or more, right? You do a flick, you do a razor or something like that, and all of a sudden that's 9 damage and you were just gonna take 3, or maybe you only blocked 3 or whatever it may be. So beware of cards like that because you don't have a lot of extra damage that you can take in Blitz, right? And again, when you're leading with armor, because you want to do a 4-card hand or something like that, all of a sudden they're disrupting something, or all of a sudden a take on the mantle comes and one card turns into the other card that you didn't want it to be, like a bonds or something like that. Ouch. Furthermore, let's just talk about massive dagger damage, right? The fact that you have Tarantula Toxin either on the graphene celery token, or you can do it on Kiss of Death or whatever it may be. But again, Orb-Weaver Spinneret to give you the celery token is disgusting. Oh my God, so much good stuff this here. And of course, lest I not forget, Codex of Frailty to deal with Leave No Witnesses or Command and Conquer multiple times a game. So good, so good. So how do you fight against what Slippy's trying to... I'm just like, Andrew, oh my God, Slippy's amazing. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, sometimes, depending on your hero, you can't. And I think that's a lot of it. But just remember those well-timed reactions. Okay, well-timed reactions. Plus, you got to go at face. Remember, if they don't have cards, they can't react. So they have to have a stealth and they have to have reactions in order to be able to do what they want to do. Also, ASC is going to want to look at 2 stealth cards plus reactions. So a lot of times most of the time they're looking at wanting a 2-card hand, which doesn't seem all that bad. But if it's only a 2-card hand, a lot of times you can shut down what they're trying to do. Once he gets to like the 3-card hand and stuff like that, like especially once the armor's gone, right? If you look at the loadout I'm playing, it's Whispers, Flick Knives, Perdition, Redback Shroud. Lots of reactions on board for that very reason. and obviously Flick Knives you get 2 of them out of, plus if you can backfill you get more, at least in theory. But once those reactions are gone from on board, they've got to play it with their hand, and that's where you can start clawing back into the game. But get out to that early lead is really, really the key with ASC here, so that you can try and protect your hand. Oh, and by the way, don't forget about Shred on your temper equipment. That really sucks to lose your Courage of Blade hold or whatever it may be. Okay, so again, I went through my full deck list in the video that I linked earlier. You can go check that out if you want a full deep dive on every card. But very potent hero, and you're going to see this one in the room just because I believe of how popular Slippy is right now. So to wrap up the top heroes today, we're going to go look at Dorinthea Quicksilver Prodigy, whom, aside from perhaps Florian, I think is the absolute most well-rounded hero into an unknown field. Dorinthea Quicksilver Prodigy is extremely good. She's extremely consistent. She's also very adaptable, with one exception. She doesn't handle Runeblades very well, and she dies to Florian really, really, really bad. So I'm just putting that out there. She really struggles into Florian. Tons of reacts on Florian's side. Warriors typically don't do great against mixed damage, with the caveat that she actually does pretty well into Aurora, but that's more of a Aurora lacking the blocking and letting her get counters issue than it is the mixed damage issue. So keeping in mind that Florian's a rough matchup, maybe QuickkyP doesn't get a ton of wins. I bet QuickkyP does get a bunch of top 8. So it used to be that QuickkyP here kind of was a one-trick pony from a certain point of view, in that she was trying to get Glistening Steelblade. And obviously she's continuing to try and do Glistening Steelblade to try and get counters and become very good. But she also just has a lot of plain out advantage after heavy hitters of being the fact that her blade is the same blade that acts as a 2-swing weapon. So you can still slice and dice on this. Blade Flurry, I guess, would work either way. But Steelblade Supremacy, right? The 1 for 2 is now a 1 for 4, okay? And with the amount of free or easier go again, I should say, that we've seen since heavy hitters, even something like Unsheathed out of Rosetta, it's become a lot easier to get that 0 cost go again, to make sure now that you have that extra resource for your reacts or whatever coming off of your Steelblade Supremacy. And keep in mind, right, 5 damage per turn is what she's threatening as a baseline. That's with like minimal card hand, and like again, you need something to pay and something to go, and usually that something to go is going to add on that. So you're usually looking at like a 2-card 8 or something every turn, pretty consistent. That's with good blocking, pretty good armor suite, and a Dynamos that refills. That's pretty good, right? Pretty good. And she is really good into ninjas because of the, being able to break the chain, or stop their chain, I should say, repeatedly with something like Dynamos. She does very well against Benji with the armor suite, does pretty well against Syndra because, again, you can throw that 1 in there on Dynamos and continue to stop the chain. Okay, so again, I talked way too long about it in the previous video. So again, I want to steer you there for the full deep dive. But what you see right here is it's just a good stuff list, right? We have stuff like Take It on the Chin. Take It on the Chin is prevention for a lot of stuff that you need right now. Really good into ASC for Flick Knives if you save it for the right time. And then you see a bunch of other stuff that's just flat out good cards. Overpower, Steelblade Shunt for weapon matchups. And you just have Go Again. You have Jagged Edge, which will let you come in and try and get around either Angels or Florian's Seeds of Tomorrow. It really works well. And then again, if you have a agility token on the table, you can pop Courage and go 5 with a 0-card hand if you need to, right? That is a game-changing thing when you're like up against Kayo. He's got you down to like, 5, 6, 7. You don't want to go to 2 because of Reckless Threat. You'll throw a bunch of stuff, maybe take 2, 3 damage, but then you'll come back with 5. And KO wants a 3-card hand generally, or more, right? And they'll usually take damage, so they can do a pop-off. So a lot of times, if they get you down to 7, they're maybe there or even less, and all of a sudden you're throwing 3 at them. All of a sudden you're throwing you're throwing 2 at them, then you're throwing 3 at them, right? But that's quite a bit. So again, I really love this hero. The change that she's seen, honestly, since Unsheathed, if I'm being honest. In this list, I'm not playing Spoils of War anymore because I took out Unsheathed, and that changes the resource curve completely so that we can actually afford stuff like Singing Steelblade. So yes, 100%, while Glistening Steelblade and being able to get the counters on is really, really, really good and really, really, really necessary. The other thing I left out earlier is that Quicksilver Prodigy does extremely well into fatigue matchups, right? If your Guardians are just trying to look to fatigue you out or grind you out, it's pretty manageable to be able to get a counter on. And once you get a counter on, it really changes a lot for them in terms of how many cards they have to commit per turn and how that changes what they can do coming back at you. Plus, you get that refresh again on the Dynamo. The longer the game goes, the more it favors you in terms of a value thing. So you're pretty favored into fatigue as well. Okay, so lots of great things to say on her. Decimator Great Axe, I always like to do that one for Riptide, but right now I'm actually not playing that right now, but it's in the list here. But again, go to that video and I'll explain what I'm going to be playing into Skirmish Season 12. All right, folks, so those are the top heroes that I believe we're going to see into Skirmish. But again, with the, of course, obvious caveat of Skirmish is awesome because it's played in your LGS. Local meta matters. Again, if you got that awesome Datadol player, the guy who's really good on Zen, the lady who's really good on Blaze, whatever it may be, everything could be different. But again, these top 6 heroes, if you don't know how to play against them, you're going to have a rough day. That's just my take. Let me know what you think below. Hopefully you've been commenting as we've gone through this. And by the way, if you appreciate the Blitz content, make sure to give me a comment below. Help the algorithm gods. And nothing else, my friends. Go Commando.